My name is Victor, and I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here today. Thank you all. Thank you, Ben, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Tennessee is beautiful. I'm from Chickendale, Arkansas, Springdale, but there's a lot of chicken plants, so they call it Chickendale. I drove up here, and I couldn't tell the difference between Arkansas and Tennessee, man. It's beautiful. Beautiful up here, man. I always get nervous up here, and I forget a lot of things. The main thing I want to say is thank you. If I jump into Spanish, somebody wave me, because I go into Spanish automatically once in a while. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. I love coming to things like this around people like y'all, because it reminds me of the beautiful program that we have today, and the results of it when I do it, even when I don't do it perfect. But once again, my name is Victor Velasquez, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's October 20th, 1997, and I owe all that to the beautiful program of Alcoholics Anonymous, people like y'all, and meetings like this. And I always start like the same way. The quick version is I started drinking and ruined my life and a lot of other people's lives. And then I came into AA, and thank God for AA, you know. The long version is I'm originally from the beautiful state of Texas. There you go, at least one. Thank you. But I'm from the broke part. Like way by the border, man. I'm way by the border, and I always tell myself, growing up, it was a normal dysfunctional family, you know, normal. I'm the oldest, and I always tell people, I don't know if you can tell, I'm kind of Mexican, so growing up, I was always, there was always people at the house. Always. Some kind of cookout. We're cooking something. They're drinking something. And we always had people around the house. And growing up, I'd always see my dad and my uncles in the corner by that barbecue pit cooking in their muscle shirts and dickies and talking. Me and my cousins be running around, and I always be like, that's what I want to be like a man's man. You know, I love my dad. I loved him. You know, he was my hero, you know. And we were from a small town. There's probably more people here than the town that I lived in, but we were from a real small town, so everybody knew everybody. And like I said, I love my dad, and I always wanted to be like him. And little by little, we got older and older, and my dad started doing a little bit more things, and it got a little bit worse and worse. And then there came a time that I didn't want to do anything with my dad. Like I didn't want to have anything to do with him. You know, the path that he took affected us all, like we all do, like tornado. And I would see the results in our family. You know, I didn't know who I brought home when I brought friends over. I don't know if it was the mean dad, the cool dad, or both. You know, mixed up at the same time. But, you know, so growing up, my mom, you know, I would always see how it affected her, because we were broke. I didn't know we were broke till I started going to school. You know, I thought we were okay. You know, I started going to school, and people had more than one pair of shoes and stuff like that. I was like, man. But growing up, like I said, it was a normal dysfunctional family. And my dad, you know, somehow I made it to high school. And I'm the favorite, my mom's favorite. I'm the favorite. Like my brothers and sisters, they're like orphans when it comes to me. You know, like I am the favorite. I don't care what they say. They know it. You know. So I never took the bus. My mom used to get up early and drive me to school. And on our way up there to high school, I was a freshman that year, and she dropped me off, and she told me, "Hey, mijo, please stay away from that stuff, man. Like you see your dad. You see what we're dealing with. You know, you see how it affects your sisters and your brothers and you know, like, please no." And I'm like, "Mom, you don't have to worry about it." You know, because I would see how hard she worked, and I would see all this stuff, and I'm like, "Mom, I promise you have nothing to worry about." Like I see it. Like I don't want to add to it. I see all this stuff and all of us, so don't worry. And I meant it. I promise you, I meant it. I would put my hand on that Bible and a lie detector. I meant it, man. And like I said, I'm from Texas, and in Texas, football is pretty important. I mean, believe it or not. Like, you know, I ain't no good at it. None. I was never good at it, you know. No. But I am from Texas, but I ain't no good at it, you know. I was like a fourth or fifth string, you know. I'd probably start here in Tennessee. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'd probably start here, but in Texas, I was like fifth or sixth string, you know, in a 3A school, you know. And they had me passing out water most of the time. I didn't even have a helmet. But this night that we played, it was a parents' night. So all the parents were in the field, in the stands, and they were watching us playing. We were losing like 40-0 or something like that, and they scored on us again. And Coach Vallecillo was like, "Victor, go on in there." And I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Yeah, I'll go on in there." We're losing anyway. What am I going to do? And I had to find a helmet. I didn't even have a helmet. I had to go find a helmet, and I go in there, and they told me where to stand, and I stand up there, and they kick that ball, and next thing I know, like I catch the ball, right, and I start running, boom. And I keep running, and I'm still running. And by the time I know it, I'm in the freaking end zone. And you ever seen that movie, Rudy, where they pick him up? That didn't happen to me. In my mind, it did. In my mind, it happened. But in real life, it didn't happen. But we still lost like 200-6 or something like that. But they kept on telling that story about how I was running and outrunning one. At first it was one, then two, then three guys. And you know how Texans are. We don't lie, we just exaggerate a little. So every time they told that story, they kept on adding to it. Now, the part that I'm from in Texas, like from here to that door is Mexico probably. Like you just cross the bridge and there's Mexico. So what a lot of these kids used to do, not me because I wasn't the cool one, after the game, some of them would shower, some of them wouldn't. They would wear their football uniform across, but they would go to this bar, have a couple of drinks, and just have fun, talk about the game that they lost again. And they were inviting me, and I was like, no, like I don't drink, like I don't, no, I'm good. Like, no, I don't want to go. But they kept on inviting me, and they were telling that story. So I said, I'll go. What's the worst that can happen? So I go up there, and I'm walking into this place, and it's an old Mexican bar, and there's a Mexican dude at the store and it's $5 free drinks all night, and they gave you a glass, right? So he gives me the glass, and I'm like, I don't drink. He goes, I don't care. Don't lose the glass because you got to pay for it again. I said, all right. So I walk in there, and all my friends are drinking, and they're dancing, and they're drinking, and they're asking me, you want to drink? And I'm like, no, homeboy, like I don't drink. I just came here to hear the story, I guess, and they keep on offering me something to drink, and I'm like, nah. And then all of a sudden, this beautiful woman showed up. I mean, like, beautiful woman. And she's like, do you drink? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. Yeah. And she went and got me a Tequila Sunrise. There's an old country song by the Eagles called Tequila Sunrise. Anyway, so... And I stole this from somebody because I don't think there's anything original from anyway. So this is the best way that I can explain it. It seems like every day before then, I was walking around like this. And I didn't know. You see, I thought everybody walked around like this. And when I took that drink, it was like, man, and I loved it. I loved the way it made me feel. I laughed. I joked. I danced. I still couldn't fight, My brother's the fighter. I'm the trash talker. He's the fighter, When you're ready to fight, you got to give me a minute because he's got to get there, But I'm good at talking. And I didn't start like every day. And the only reason I didn't start every day is because I was broke, and I was still going to school and I still live with my parents, But little by little, everything that I did, everything that I planned revolved around drinking. And I got into a little bit of trouble in high school, a little trouble, getting beat up a couple of times, or toilet papering somebody's house, little high school stuff, and nothing major. And it never occurred to me that, maybe the way I was starting my drinking was a reason of that. It never occurred to me because really it wasn't that. It was fun in the beginning, is what I'm trying to say. And I ended up somehow making it into being a senior. And it was Fish on Friday. It was a Friday because it was Fish on Friday. I'm sitting in the cafeteria eating my fish. And I'm sitting there talking, and this beautiful lady showed up. I mean, beautiful lady. And we started talking. She started telling me about something, and I didn't pay attention. And we started talking, and I agreed to sign a document. And I signed up to the Army for 2 years at that point. I'm telling you, man. 2 years, and at that time I had already started doing the devil's lettuce, and a couple of other stuff. I'm an alcoholic, but so I was going to go to Fort Lost in the Woods, and I'm in Texas, and I was telling this friend of mine from the neighborhood, and he's like, Victor, once you leave Texas, that lettuce costs a lot more, and I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, you should take some with you. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. So that makes sense, right? Smart dude, man. And so I grab a bag of Doritos, I empty it, I put the quarter pound, and I put the Doritos, and I make it all the way to Fort Leonard Wood. Don't do it now. They got oh, don't try it. No, I'm telling you. They'll catch you. They're watching us everywhere. But anyway, so I make it all the way up there, and as soon as I get there, I realize that the Army, that it was just not for me, man. You know, if you serve in the Army, thank you. I really appreciate it, because it's because of the service that you did and the sacrifices your family gave that we're able to do things like this. But the Army wasn't for me, man. There was this guy who walked into the bus, and he told me I had 10 seconds to get off, and 5 had already passed by, and he was screaming, and he grabbed all my mom's pictures and threw them on the floor and made me do push-ups. All of us. He was just going crazy. And I'm like, homeboy, calm down. No, it was no calming down. No. He told me he wasn't my homeboy. I ain't your homeboy. You know, like, okay. You know, I got there like on a Wednesday, and on Thursday, on Friday, they got our shots and our uniforms and everything. And that Saturday or whatever day it landed, they ended up putting me as a fire watch. And I didn't know what to do, but basically what I was supposed to do is, if the building caught on fire, wake everybody up and tell them to get up, don't get burned. But I think what they really wanted me to do is, in case somebody wanted to leave, they wanted me to go kind of tell it, you know. And I'm from Texas, I can't tell it, you know. But anyway, so lo and behold, I'm out there, and of course, some young man wants to leave, and I'm telling him, I'm homeboy, because his grandma was already waiting for him somewhere. And I'm like, man, why don't you stay? We're talking, and I said, why don't you smoke some of this? You know, we did. It felt great. He went to sleep. A couple of days later, they find it. I don't know how they found it. They found it, and they wanted to send me to Fort Leavenworth. Yeah, y'all heard about? Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, I found out pretty quick, and I'm a gangster. So once I found out, I did what all gangsters do. I cried, you know, like my dad's a heroin addict. Please help me. You know, I'm a real gangster. So I started crying and telling them this story, and they believed it, and they discharged me, right? And the day that after going through court and all these things, so I don't get any cases. They ended up general discharge. They said I could come back in 2 years. And as they're going through the inventory, there's a taxi waiting for me, and there's like a little TV on the side. And they're going through my inventory, and then there's like a news flash. And Iraq is invading Kuwait. You know, and for that brief moment, I felt like once again, because it had happened before, whether it was sports, academics, or a job or something, where it was right there, and it wasn't. You know, and I felt shame. I felt guilt that I could have been a part of something good for this country, you know, for my country. And long story short, as soon as the guy honked, I forgot about it, got in the car, made it home. And as soon as I get home, my dad's like, ¿Qué pasó? What happened? And I'm like, Dad, something's wrong with my foot. And he didn't, you know, if you got kids, you know they're lying. So he knew I was lying, man. You know, and I'll say this again, you know, once again, another disappointment, you know. Another, when you're a first generation and you know, you want the best for your kids, and once again, there goes Victor, you know, junior, and I'm a junior. You know, I'm his favorite too. Anyway, so once again, you know, I let him down, you know, and I do what all gangsters do. I met this girl when I was in 6th grade, and for some reason she stuck with me till then, at that point, and her dad got her an apartment. Her family got her an apartment. They were paying for it. So when she asked me to move in, I'm like, yeah, I'm a gangster. Yeah, I'll move in. You know, her dad's paying all the bills. And then he even gave me a job. So, you know, I'm working for him, and it's getting a little bit worse. You know, just a little bit. You know, the way I'm drinking, the stuff that she's finding, and the things that I don't follow through. You know, little things. And they just keep on adding up, and I don't pay attention, man. I'm young. You know, I got a lot of stress. I just got kicked out of the Army. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm thinking about going to college, and I know I ain't going to college, but I'm thinking about it, you know. And I don't want to work. I don't like to work, and I ain't that kind of Mexican. I tell people I ain't that kind of Mexican. So I'm there, and I'm working for her dad, and it's getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And I'm sitting there one night, I think it's a Wednesday or a Monday, because we're watching either Melrose Place or 90210. I remember it was either a Monday, and we're sitting in her couch, and I'm holding her like this, and we're watching TV, And the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's this guy from high school. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "No, just watching TV." He goes, "You want to go do some armed robberies?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I like to point out, like, I don't even like this dude. Like, I don't even like him. But there I go, brown pride. There I go. I'm not scared. I'm scared. Anyway, I get into this car, and it's 3 of us. It's him, his cousin, and me, and we only have one gun. They have one gun. I don't have any guns. They have one gun. So I want to use the gun in the first one, and it's not mine. I want to use it in the second one, and their cousin. So, So I use it in the third one. I don't know what I'm doing, and the guy gives me a hard time. But sooner or later, he gives me the money after I pull that little thing in the back. I don't even know what it's called. That's why I have my brother, because he fights. I just talk, But anyway, and I took the whole $80 he gave me, but that was the only gas station with the camera. So the next day I'm on TV and everybody is calling. Everybody's calling. So I'm a gangster. So what do? I run. I run. And my dad used to work. I don't know, these glasses. And I'm sorry. Sometimes these glasses leak for some crazy reason. But my dad used to work at the cotton gins. He in North Carolina, up here in Walden, North Carolina. He used to work on some cotton gins. During the off season, he would maintenance them, and then during the season, he would run it. And then, that was his job. That's what he liked to do, or what he had to do. So I ended up coming up here, and after about 3 months, I tell him, I said, "Hey, Dad, I messed up." I said, "They're looking for me." He goes, "What'd you do?" I said, I did 3 armed robberies, and they're looking for me." He's like, "Man, mijo," he goes, "you really only got 2 choices." He goes, you can turn yourself in and never, ever, you can go to Mexico. I'm sorry, you can go to Mexico and never, ever come back, or you can turn yourself in. And I'm like, I ain't going to Mexico. I told you, I ain't that kind of a Mexican, man. Like, I love America, so I do what all gangsters do. I go to my mom, and I go to the police, and I turn myself in, right? And when I turned myself in, the DA went to go visit me and my attorney, and he basically said, "I'll give you 15 years. I'll offer you 15 years. You'll be out in 5. No, you're 18. You'll be all right." And I'm like, "Man, 15." I said, "I got to think about it." So I went back to the cell. I don't know if you've ever been to county jail. If you haven't, don't go. It's not cool, Not like it used to be. But anyway, it's not cool. But in every county jail, there's like an attorney there, somebody who's been through the system like 30 times and gives you all this free legal advice. And he was asking me, "Hey, youngster, what'd they offer you?" I said, 15. He goes, "Oh, no. He said, you got to ask them for 25. I said, 25? He goes, "Yeah, because they want to have you on paper. They want to." And then I kept on listening to that story about asking for 25 instead of 15. And I listened to so long, it was starting to make sense. And I'm like, maybe I do need to ask for it. So I called my mom, and I said, "Mom, what if?" She goes, "Mijo, no. You take the 15. Hopefully you'll be out by 5. So we called the DA, and we arranged it that I was going to plea bargain for that 15. And so I wake up in the morning, I catch the train to the courthouse, and I go, and it's the state of Texas versus Victor Velasquez, and my mom's back here, my little sister and my brothers, they're back here. I'm the favorite. She's crying. My brothers and sisters, they're crying. I'm a gangster. You know what I'm doing. I'm crying, And the judge looks at me and he goes, what are they offering you? I said, the DA says, "We're offering him 15 years. He'll be all right. Like, he'll do 5. He asked me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18, sir." And he goes, "Okay." And he started thinking, and all of a sudden, I wanted to point out, like, when I woke up that morning, I was going to sign up for 15 years. That was my deal. That's the only deal that I had. And this beautiful man out of nowhere decided, he's like, "I got this program called boot camp." He goes, "I'm going to send you there for 90 days. And that's all I heard. I was facing 15 years. This beautiful man gave me 90 days. And the first thing that came across my head is, I'm going to be gone all summer. Right? Like, 15 years, 90 days, I should have ran up there, kissed that man's feet, tell them thank you. Like, but I'm selfish, and I still don't see it. And it's crazy that I end up doing the boot camp in prison, and I couldn't do the boot camp in real life. It still eats me up. But so I'm doing this boot camp, and of course I'm eating, which I wasn't. I'm sober, which I wasn't. I'm exercising, which I never did. So I'm starting to feel a lot better. And they're giving us all these videos. And there's this beautiful man named Hollywood Henderson who played for the most beautiful team in the world, the Dallas Cowboys, of course, right? Oh, one? All right. Well, and he had this video, a substance abuse video, where he's telling people, you gotta stop. You keep on doing what you're doing, you're gonna keep on getting what you're getting. And I'm like, that makes sense. Stay away from those things. Like, that makes sense. He goes, you gotta stop. Don't slow down. And I'm like, that makes sense. If I got a stick and I'm hitting you in the head, do you want me to stop? Or do you want me to slow down? And I'm like, I want you to stop. Like I get it. It made sense. And even Bill talks about the fear. I'm stopping because I'm a fear, because I got all this knowledge, or I'm being bribed or threatened. And I really wanted to stop. I wanted to. My mom came to visit me with that girl, and they went to see me, and I'm sitting there, and I'm telling her, Mom, this place ain't for me. Like, I'm in this place with 80 people. 80. Little did I know I was going to end up in a 4,000-man unit later, but at that point, 80 people seemed like a lot. I'm showering with these guys, and I'm pooping right next to them, and they're talking to me while I'm pooping, and, I said, and I found out who my friends are, because nobody wrote. Nobody stopped at my mom's house to see how she's doing. You need some groceries? Do you need me to mow your yard? Nobody. I said, Mom, I know. I said, look, you drove up here. I'm going to act right. Like, I don't care. I'm going to act right. I'm going to go get a job. I don't care if I got to take the bus. Like, I don't care. I just want to be out there and be the son that you deserve. And I meant it. I promise you I meant it. After 88 days, I cashed the chain back and go in front of the same judge. And he's like, Victor, you did great. You did great. No disciplinaries. You marched. You helped people with their GED. You did great. He goes, all you got to do is don't do that again. Like, stay away from that. And I thought, I can do that. I can do that. It makes sense, right? I can do that. You see, I didn't know I couldn't. I thought I could. And I'm sitting there, and I tell the judge, like, hey, I'm yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I meant it. 30 days later, I'm right back at it. When you're here in these rooms that you start where you left off, that's exactly where I started. And little by little, it kept on getting worse. But I didn't see it. I'm still living with my girlfriend. I'm still working for her dad. And little by little, it's just getting worse and worse. And my family's getting tired of me because I'm a gangster and I only steal from them, because what are they going to do? Call the cops on me and then bomb me out, they're afraid of me. They just don't know what to do with me. And I still think I'm okay. And back in the day, they had these little boxes that if you're not home and you call, this little box will record the message. And I go back to I was taking a lunch, and I go to my girlfriend's apartment, and I'm listening to it, and it's my PO. He's telling me to give him a call as soon as I get this. So I call him, and he's like, I need you in my office, like, right now. And I'm like, what about my job? He goes, you want to go to prison? And I'm like, oh, no. So I get in my car, and I go up there, and as soon as I'm walking in, I see my mom and my girlfriend, and they're just telling it on me. They're just telling it on me, man. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I don't do this, I don't do that. And my probation officer, he's just getting red in the face, and he ended up testing me, and I passed them all, And he's like, Victor, tomorrow I need you to go to this treatment center. They're gonna do a thing with you, and they're gonna decide if you're probably gonna end up staying there for 28 days. And I said, what about my job? He goes, I don't care about your job. I said, all right. So as I'm leaving, my mom is about this tall, man, like that poor woman. And basically, I kind of screamed at her and told her that it's her fault that I'm going to prison. That if she just minds her own business, just mind your own business, leave me alone. Like, if all of this is your fault, you just never leave me alone. And I ended up going home, and the next day I go to that treatment center, and there's this guy, and he's asking me questions. He goes, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, your girlfriend's saying all this stuff. I said, man, I'm fixing to leave her, and she's lying, And he goes, what about your mom? I said, my mom wants me to get married. Like, I don't want to I had just turned 21. My belly button birthday is March 17th, so I'm an Irish Mexican. I was born in St. Patrick's Day, you know. I had just turned 21. And he goes, what about, you got a job? I said, yes, sir. How about your fines? Paid. Her dad paid for them. Community hours, done. Her dad paid the guy to write the hours, you know. And he goes, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. You should just go home, and we need this bed for somebody who actually needs it, not you. And I'm like, okay. So I get home, and that machine is blinking. I call him, and he says, Victor, you come up dirty for anything, I'm going to send you to prison. I'm like, all right. So I go back, and back in the day, I had this old truck, a 1987 truck, anyway, and I had a loud radio. And what we used to do on the Sundays, we used to go to the park and go cruising with your radio. You park and then see other cars. And at this time, I'm just drinking, you know, because my PO didn't really care about the drinking. Well, I didn't know if he cared. I didn't care. I was like the drugs, you know. Back then, Nancy Reagan was telling everybody to say no. So my friends would come and offer me drugs. I'm like, no, man, like I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. And I kept on drinking. And my girlfriend's cell phones were about this big back in the day, remember? So I pick up the phone, and it's her. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm at the park. She goes, baby, come home. You know how my dad gets when you show up late and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. See, and I like to remind myself and remind you all that I don't have DUIs. I don't have 30 DUIs in 10 different states or public. I don't have any of that. But that night, I don't make it home. I killed 2 people driving drunk. Yeah. I killed an 11-month-old baby. And a 21-year-old man. Yeah. And a part of me wishes I could tell you, ever since then, I haven't had a drink. That's what they mean when they say it's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful. I can't stop. Like I want to stop. There was many days I wanted to stop. I had great reasons to stop. Great people behind me. Can't stop. I just can't. The DA shows up and he's offering me 10 years for all of it, and I just signed. 3 or 4 weeks later, I'm walking into prison. Like that quick. They wanted to get rid of me from there. I'm walking into prison, and I do what people in prison do. You know, I stick to my own kind. I wake up in the morning, I shave, go to the bars, put my ID, walk out, go work in the kitchen. Take a quick shower, go outside, play some handball, talk to my homeboys, and go back to bed and repeat. Get a routine. But every night when I'm in that cell, by myself, thinking the reason that I got there, you know, why can't I stop? I learned how to make hooch, you know, yeast, some sugar, a starch, some liquid, let it sit for a while, add some more sugar, stir it, let it sit, you drink it, it changes the way you feel. I can't stop. I just can't. Tried church, nothing against church. You know, I got saved a bunch of times. You know, nothing against church. I even had a cellie once show up. He became a Muslim, right? And all of a sudden, like he was using big words and exercising, and I was like, maybe I need to become a Muslim. So I became a Muslim. I ordered the Quran. I ordered the hat. I ordered the rug, and then I found out they don't eat pork. I'm like, man. I said, not even like tamales or like no. And I still can't stop, right? And I go through my days like as normal as I could in prison, and I can't stop. Like it was driving me crazy, you know. Like why can't I stop? You know. Look at all the damage. And then Earl Davis is this white dude I met in prison. Well, I knew him in prison when I got there. I got there in '93, and I knew him, and he had this big old white lightning bolts here, and had Houston on there. You know, he'd been there for a while, and everybody knew Earl. They knew. You know, we and him talked, but we weren't cool. But we talked, and all of a sudden, because I was working in the commissary, I was the captain's clerk, and he was taking inventory of the milk. And all of a sudden, I go up there to wherever he's taking in the inventory, and he's like, you need to go to these AA meetings, man. They got a new guy. And I'm like, what the hell happened to Earl Davis, you know? But for him to ask me to go up there, and I'm like, what do they have up there? He goes, oh, they got cookies. I said, man, I can buy my own cookies. He goes, man, they got coffee. Sometimes they bring girls. And I'm like, man, at that time I had about 4 years in there. I'm like, well, girls. I said, yeah, I'd like to go up there. And, maybe I do need to go up there. So, because of Earl, I went to my first meeting, and like every gangster in prison, I put my starched whites, my nice shoes, and me and my homeboy, we sit all the way in the back talking while this guy is sharing his story. And before I forget, if you take meetings to places like that and rehabs and all those places that we can't have access to meetings, thanks to y'all, we do, thank you. Because it's because of the work that you do that sometimes it's not appreciated. And sometimes it's even disrespected, man. But if it wasn't for people like y'all, people like me, we wouldn't be here at all. At all, man. And it's a lot of a commitment. It's a lot of commitment, because that man was there every Monday. Every Monday, as soon as the last call for Chavez Hall, they would call out for that meeting, didn't miss. And anyway, so Sonny started bringing meetings, is what I'm trying to say. He started meetings. He would go to his meeting hall, bring people like y'all, go up there and tell their story. And this time they had a gentleman telling his story. And for some reason, God saw it fit for me to be quiet while he was talking about the doctor's opinion. About the allergy and the obsession, and the way he explained it makes sense even to me. And for the first time, I realized why I couldn't stop. And I go to Sonny and I said, Sonny, will you sponsor me? And he goes like, well, what do you? I said, I'll do anything. You know how I'll do anything, He goes, Victor, man, all I want you to do is to be honest with me. He goes, no matter what, tell me everything and be honest. Be honest. He says that, he goes, if you want a life like you never had before, you need to do things you've never done before. And this is the beginning right here. So he started explaining about powerlessness and the choice. I'm not going to go through the whole steps, but it was very important to me to know that powerlessness and not having a choice is basically the same thing. Probably in Tennessee they have it too. In Arkansas, they've got this program called Drug Court, where people get a chance and they get to spend like either 1 year of rehabs or whatever, or 20 years in prison. And you'd be surprised how many people end up with the 20 years in prison. Because it's not a choice. I can't stop. Anyway, so I'm sitting there. I'm trying to remember where I was at. We were going through the steps, and then we went through the step 1, and then we got to step 3, and I got on my knees in prison. On my knees in this office, holding hands with this man, saying the 3rd step prayer. And then I got up and these things were leaking. And he said, Victor, now do you know what it means when you turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him? I said, no. He goes, Victor, what it means is as of today, your life is none of your business. What you do, what happens in your life is none of your business. Your job is to prepare yourself to be of maximum service to everybody, to arm yourself with facts about yourself so you can help someone else. And I listened to it. I mean, it didn't take a grasp, but sooner or later it did. So I said, and then we started talking about God. You see, when I come into meetings and you talk about the way you drink, the way it makes you feel, and all the crazy stuff that you do, I can relate to that all day long. All day long. I can sit there and listen to you all day long. But then you say God. And God. And I'm like, I don't know. And I told Sonny, Sonny, I don't know how to have a relationship with people. I said, the only relationship I ever had was with that bottle. That's the only, and I stuck with it thick or thin. I lost everything because of that relationship. I said, I don't know how to have it. He says, Victor, a relationship with God is like a relationship with y'all. Some of y'all might not even like me because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan with 5 Super Bowl rings. 5, so you might not even like me. But if we spend 5 minutes every day, and those 5 minutes grow to 10 minutes, we can become friends. I promise you, we can become friends. And the long way, and that's the way my relationship with God started. In the beginning, I would get on my knees, and if I would hear somebody coming, I would open my locker and I would act like I'm looking in it, like a gangster. And then it came to the point, I didn't care. I didn't care what you think. I knew there was a God. I knew this relationship was working. So we're going through these steps, and little by little, it's still prison. And the Cowboys are still losing. There's a game on TV, and we're losing. And Tony Romo's got the ball in the 4th quarter, and I'm like, oh my God! And there's this guy from Houston talking about his favorite team is anybody who beats the cow. You know those guys, with less than 5 rings. You know them, So he started, and I said, why don't you put some money on it? We ended up betting like $10, which in prison is like $1,000. And the clock is ticking, and we're fixing to lose. So I go to my cell, I put my boots on, take my shirt off, put the baby powder on, and I go downstairs, and he's like, hey, where's my money? I said, homeboy, you ain't getting paid. Now what? Like I said, I don't know how to fight. I'm a scaredy cat. It just happens that he was just a little bit more scared than I was, So I let him have it, saying all these things to him. And as I'm walking back, like it bothered me. It just bothered me. And I'm like, and I had done worse things than that. Like worse things worse things never bothered me. Because for me, if you found yourself in that prison, you made grown-up decisions. And sometimes you get grown-up consequences, So for me to feel bad for somebody because you're 18, 17, or you're 60 or 70, like, no, homeboy. Like, no. But it bothered me. So I call Sonny. I didn't call him. I make a request. I go see him and I tell him, because that's the only thing he asked me to. And I told myself I was going to stick to it. So I tell him, he goes, Victor, man, you might have to make amends to that guy. And I'm like, Sonny, I'm in prison. I can't. I can't. He goes, you want that life you never had before? I said, man, I can't. I walk back. And by this time, this relationship had been more than 10 minutes a day. And next thing I know, I find myself on my knees. And I ask God to please give me the courage. Because I'm a coward. And I want to point out, I'm a coward. Left to my own devices, I'm a coward. So I ask God, give me the courage to do what you want me to do in order to be where you want me to be. And next thing I know, I'm filling up that bag with money, with soap, now no food. Food is good money in prison, so but envelopes, stamps, matches. That back then we used to smoke and cigarettes. No, I don't do it anymore. Anyway, so I fill it up with $20. I double it. I go to the day room and I'm like, here you go. And I said, look, here you go. Here's your money. We didn't become best friends. He's not sitting here somewhere. I don't write him. To be honest, I don't know what happened to him. But I know what happened to me, And for me, that was a big difference because sometimes I want to see the result before I take the action. And it doesn't work like that. So when the state of Texas says 10 years, guess what? They mean 10 years. And in April 18 of 2003, they let me out and they gave me $200, right, for my 10 years. So I got that $200, and what's the first thing I buy? Cigarettes. I bought some cigarettes, I bought some pants and this and that, and my brother picked me up, and we went to the broke part of Texas that I'm from, go see my grandma, because, she's getting a little bit older. And when I get there, my dad's right there. And when he sees me, he goes, ¿Qué pasó, mijo? What's up? I said, man, I just got out of prison. He goes, you got any money? I'm like, I got about $80 or 100. He goes, let me hold 60. I said, Dad, I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. He goes, Nambe, let me hold 60. You're going to sleep here in your grandma's house. Don't worry about it. So long story, I didn't give him the money. And he reminded me what kind of son I was. And then it still gets to me, Because when I did that fifth step, I had written a list of all the things my dad could have done better, right? Why I was angry at him and all the stuff that he did. And Sonny listened to it for about 2 minutes, a minute at the most. And then he asked me, what kind of son were you? Did you ever lie to him? I'm like, yeah. Disrespect him? Yeah. Steal from him? Yeah. That's what you can work on. So anyway, so I leave, I'm walking out and my cell phone rings and it's my mom. And she's like, mijo, come to Arkansas with me. You've been gone for 10 years. Why don't you come to Arkansas with me, stay here for a year, and then go do whatever you want. And I'm like, Arkansas? What part of Texas is that? I should have stayed in school longer, man. But anyway, I ended up getting in, and we ended up going up to like all gangsters. I'm moving with my mom, 31 years old with $30 in my pocket. I'm moving with my mom and I'm driving her car like a gangster. And I called Sonny. I said, Sonny, what do I do? I said, how are we going to work this sponsorship? He goes, and I'm not saying this is the right way or the only way or the wrong. I don't know. All I know is this is what worked for me. He said, Victor, I can't sponsor you from Texas. You need to find somebody, and you need to go to meetings, pick a sponsor that you see, and that sees you, and that you can meet with them physically on a regular basis and work your steps again. And the crazy thing is, the same thing that Sonny made me do with those steps is the same thing that Don made me do with those steps. You know, the first time I was going to sponsor something, I told Don, what am I going to do? He goes, mijo, we got a book. Right? You don't do nothing. Just take them to that book. You're not a counselor or anything. You take them to that book, man. It's not rocket science, man. But like I ended up asking Don, and I didn't like him. I still don't once in a while. Sucker, man. He doesn't like the Cowboys either, but it's not his fault. I ended up getting a sponsor, and I kept on going to meetings, and little by little, I started working. I was sitting in a meeting, and somebody's like, hey, you want a job? I'm like, I guess I need a job. They're going to charge me rent sooner or later. He goes, I got this painting company. And I'm like, oh, like I hate painting. I'm really not that kind of Mexican. Like I hate it, man. And I'm painting, and then I'm going to these meetings, and then I get my first check, and it was like $300, and I'm like, what? For the whole week? The whole week? You got me painting, taping, cleaning, wash, $300. Man, and I did the math, and that was no bueno at all, man, But I'm sticking to it, and I'm going to meetings, and I'm going to candlelight meetings, and I get home, and my mom is right there. I open the door, and she's like, mijo, what? And I call Sonny, and he's like, mijo, how important is that relationship to you? Because I was complaining. And I said, it's very important. She's the only mom I got. Like, that's my only mom. And he said, well, why don't you make an effort in you? So now what I did, instead of staying mad, when I would open the door, I'd be like, I'm right here, Mom. And little by little, she started trusting me. And I would go to all these meetings, but I was getting tired of these meetings and bowling and Brahms. And I was getting tired, and they had this camp out. And I wasn't going to go. I'm like, I ain't going to this camp out. Forget that. I ain't going. Victor, you going? Yeah, but I ain't going. And what do? I go, and I met the wife of a gentleman, one of our friends there, worked at a title, not tile. I'm not that kind of title, like a title company. When you buy a house, all those papers that you sign. And she's like, we're looking for somebody. You speak Spanish? I'm like, yeah, it's easy. She's like, well, we're looking for somebody who speaks Spanish. I said, man, I just got out of prison. I got 3 armed robberies and 2 manslaughters and an aggravated assault. Like, go try it. So I go in there, and the lady says, I'm going to give you a job. If you get good at this, you can make a career. Or if you steal from me, you go to prison, and I hire someone else. Right? And through all these years, I think in 2019, I ended up opening up my own title company. And it's crazy, right? From eating ramen noodles to doing closing, And I didn't do that on my own, I promise you. There's a lot of people that helped me. And through this job, but as I was working, I met this lady, Courtney, and I met her, and a couple of weeks later, she moved in, and we had this little girl, right? We had this little girl. And I'm working, and it's, I don't know if you ever work at a title company, it can get kind of stressful, and I'm stressed, and I'm broke, and I'm working. And I come home one day, and she's in the kitchen cooking. And my mom, Courtney's white, my mom is also Mexican, so she cooks. And and I get there, and she's cooking, and I say, hey, what's for dinner? She's like, fish sticks. And macaroni and cheese. And it wasn't even the fancy macaroni. It was the elbow one. And I look at that, I'm like, you know how that cheese looks? I'm like, And I said a couple of things. She said a couple of things. And I was mad, so I walk into the living room, and Charlotte is crawling. And I pick her up, and she's got her little butt right here, and she's playing in my ears, and it hits me. She's 11 months old. Right? And then is when I knew what I took from somebody. You see, I always thought I knew. I always thought I knew the damage that I did to that family. And I hated that lady, the mom. I usually don't say this, but for some reason I'm saying it. And not that the life of the 21-year-old, but I was so angry at that woman because there was a baby sitting in the back. Like, she chose to have him here. Right? And I was so angry. Like I had the right to be angry, And then Sonny pointed out, is she the only one who made it? Yeah. And you know why? because she had the baby as a buffer, right? And that's when my anger leaves. You see what I'm saying? Like, when a person is armed with facts about themselves, it helps me see my part. And like that, these things start leaking, I promise you, Anyway, so I go into the kitchen, I hug Courtney, I eat like 30 servings of those freaking fish sticks, I called Don and he's like, now you're ready to make amends. One thing I like to point out is when I make amends, it's not the $20. It's not the $20 that I took from you. $20 is $20, It's how it made you feel. How you can't trust me. You can't trust your friends. You got to hide your purse. You got to be that way around me. That's what I'm making amends. And when I realize that that's what I'm making amends, it's hard for me to do it again. Because I see the damage. I see the cost. And I don't want to do it again. We had a Reuben, my little boy, and then I had Steve, and my wife got pregnant again. We should have bought a TV, but no, we got pregnant again. And she wanted to have it, like I told you, she's white. She wanted to have it at a place like in a pool, like a doula. I think it's what it's called, a doula or something. The first two we had in the hospital. So Courtney's a teacher, so she was working at work and she's having all these contractions. We go to the lady. She goes, "Oh no, you got about 4 more hours. Why don't you go home and pack?" Well, as I'm home, I'm calling my boss, telling him that I'm not showing up tomorrow for work. And then I hear a scream. I walk in there and Courtney's on all fours. The baby's coming. And I'm like, no. And I look, I'm like, there's nothing coming. And I said, I can pick you up. I can pick you up and put you in the car. Like, no, the baby's coming. So I call 911 and they're asking my name and all that. And I said, hold on. And I put my hand and I don't feel anything. And then I put my hand again and then whoop, I see the head, right? I'm like, hold on. And then I stick my hand out there and boom, there's the baby, right? I delivered my own. Even in the birth certificate it says I delivered him, Yeah. So at the house, So, the ambulance comes, they take Courtney, and then I show up later, like in 30 minutes later, because I had to pick up the kids and all that stuff. And I get there, and I joke once in a while. I'm very serious. I joke once in a while. And I go in there, and I'm like, I know somebody owes me some money because I delivered that baby, right? I didn't get nothing. Zero, man. And then the people walk out and the doctor comes in and she's kind of serious. And we found out that our baby's got Down syndrome, and I didn't know I knew what that was, but I didn't know what that was. And like every gangster, I get full of fear, I'm worried about what y'all are going to do. Am I going to have to kill you, I used to say that when I go to men's prisons or something and talk, I say, how many would you kill me if I put your family in danger? Everybody raises, I say, your family doesn't want you to kill me. They want you to go to work, Get a job, raise your kids, So I get all this fear about my baby having Down syndrome and what y'all are going to do. And, through sponsorship and step work, I realized that I'm not God. That everything in God's world is perfect. And for some reason, He chose us. I don't know. And Stephen is a great addition to him. He's great. Our family is closer and all that, My mom used to go see me. I like to point this out. My mom used to go see me every Mother's Day. Mother's Day in Mexico is May 10th. Doesn't matter. Like Saturday was Mother's Day. And then on the second Sunday is America. So she got two. She got this weekend. She was Saturday and Sunday. My mom had dual citizenship. That's bullcorn. But so every Mother's Day she used to drive. My mom used to work at a chicken plant. Right. When I'm being a gangster in prison, she's hanging chickens. And working, and then she would get off of work, drive 12 hours, 14 hours to that prison, see me Saturday for 4 hours, spend her hard-earned money on a hotel, see me Sunday for 4 hours, and drive back to get to that chicken plant, right? I used to see her hands all swollen and cutting from the blade that they had to use. And I remember telling her, I said, Mom, when I get out, all I want to do is, like that guy in the story says, all I want to do is whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, if you give me the opportunity. And I'm staying with her, and it's summer, and she's like, Mijo, I need you to cut the grass. And you know what I say? It's too hot. See, because I forget. I forget. I just told you all this story, and then I'm going to tell you that I'm worried about my taxes or gas prices or, I don't know, something. I don't know what people worry about. Today I try to stay and remember that the life that I've been given is a gift. That it's none of my business. And that, of course, I have a lot of things to complain about, but nobody cares. I have a lot of things to be grateful for, and everything that I have in my life, I owe it to Alcoholics Anonymous. My mom, it took me about 2 years to get her out of that chicken plant, and she doesn't have a life of luxury. She gets her little Social Security. I give her like $50 a week for her casino because she loves that casino, man. And you know what the funny thing? Casino in Spanish means almost never. Casi no, right? But there she is. There she is. Casino, I'm telling you. They just say it wrong. It's a casino. No, it's casino. You casi no ganas. You don't win. But anyway, my dad, I was at a meeting one day, and this gentleman was sharing about a 10-second hug experience he had with a family member that he hadn't talked to about. His sponsor suggested that next time you see him, give him a 10-second hug. And he gave him a 10-second hug, and that 10-second hug turned into 20. And then when next time I saw my dad, I gave him that. And next thing I know, my eyes are leaking, his eyes are leaking, and 3 months later, he passed away. This program has given me the opportunity to make amends to people that should have never spoken to me again, ever. And the life that if I tell you the life that I have today, you're going to think I'm bragging. Seriously, you're going to think I'm bragging, but it's not. It's just a result of, in spite of myself, in spite of everything that I try to do wrong once in a while, God is so merciful. And the God that I serve today, when I wake up in the morning, He's right there. And all His love, all His power, everything is just there for me. And you know what the beautiful thing is? It's the same thing with you. It's the exact same thing. I was speaking in Texas, and and once in a while when you talk, I'll stand up there and people will say hi and thank you. And this lady came up to me, and this older lady, and she didn't mean this bad in any way, not at all. But she grabbed me by my hands and she basically asked me, how can you live with yourself? I can't. Left to my own devices, I'd be dead by now, or living in this, or something. But my life ain't none of my business. And through this beautiful program, I can tell you, I have joy in my life. I have happiness. I have sadness too. And my life ain't perfect. I was sharing earlier was that I'm going through this divorce. I didn't even know. I found out I was going through this divorce. And I'm not, Courtney is a great wife, great mom, great. And I'm going through this divorce, and I found out in February. And a part of me wants to, do what naturally wants to do. I want to talk. I want to scream. I want to fight. But I don't know how to. I can beat that dude up. I really can. I think I can. I want to do all these things. But through this program, I can't. I have a responsibility. I got 3 kids. My youngest with Down syndrome. I got 3 kids at the house. I got to take care of them. And I say all that to say is that my life ain't perfect. Like it's not. It's not. But I can live with the things that are happening in my life. And when those things happen, my first thought is not like, I'm going to go get drunk. I'm going to go do. No. It's what's my part? What's my part? What did I do? And whatever. Anyway, so I said all that to say that I'm grateful to be here today. And I'm sorry. Sometimes I go off in little tangents, but this program saved my life, and I think it all started with my mom's prayers and everybody's prayers, and the sponsorship and the people that take the meetings where nobody shows up, and they take these meetings to the treatment centers and the jails. Because of that kind of work, people like me to listen to the message. Because if it wasn't for that moment of clarity, I don't know where I'd be right now. Probably still in that prison, or if I would have gotten out, I'd probably be back there like now. Thank you so much for having me here today. I wish I had a joke, but I'm not that funny. I'm not that funny. Thank you so much. I love y'all. What do I do now?